I was just thinking, just had a thought about your warning about if Taiwan is taken, that would cause nuclear proliferation. What if we do just a little preemptive nuclear proliferation and give Taiwan nukes?
No, it's kind of like this is one of those counterfactuals where, what if Ukraine still had nuclear weapons? What if Taiwan
probably shouldn't have given it up?
Yeah, look, if Taiwan had succeeded in creating a nuclear arsenal in the 1970s and was unwilling to give it up, even in the face of American pressure and so forth, it might have led to a different calculus right now. The problem with trying to provide Taiwan with its own nuclear arsenal right now, I mean, there are political problems in a lot of different places and so forth. But one is that Beijing, I think, has made clear that is a red line for Beijing. And my estimate is that Beijing would probably have more resolve to defend that red line than President Biden has had to defend the red line that he drew for Xi Jinping a couple of years ago. That is to say, I think that you could trigger a war by trying to provide Taiwan with its own nuclear arsenal. That said, I do think there are things that the U.S. can be doing in response to China's aggression against Taiwan. Well, it's pressure, that it's military pressure it's putting on Taiwan, and its recent attack on Philippine forces. I think that moving nuclear weapons, some nuclear weapons to the first island chain. Prime Minister Abe, before he was tragically assassinated, had talked about the idea of nuclear sharing, that is, hosting tactical or other nuclear weapons from the U.S. In Japan. I think we can explore some of those things. A lot of that, of course, would be symbolic more than tactically meaningful, given that we can deliver nukes. We don't need to have our nukes pre-staged in Asia in order to deploy them very effectively on targets in North Korea or in the Taiwan Strait. They don't need to be there. But anyway, that's a long-winded answer to your question, Chris.
Right. I mean, we could put nukes in Guam.
Yeah, you can put. Look, I think we need to be building more of these nukes that can be put on the tips of tomahawks. We used to have a lot of these, and they were dismantled during the Obama administration. I think we need to put those back together again, because if we're limited to strategic nukes as the only nuclear sort of option, it actually weakens deterrence because we don't have the flexibility to respond in more limited ways using nuclear weapons in the event that China or North Korea or Russia begin actually using nuclear weapons. I'm not calling for preemptive use of nukes, but what I'm talking about is having some flexibility in our arsenal in order to deter our adversaries from employing nukes.
So in other words, the bigger and more diverse our nuclear arsenal gets, the less likely that any of it will ever have to be used.
Yeah, I mean, our strategic nukes have some flexibility in how they can be employed. You can decide what the cone of destruction can be. You can detonate them at different altitudes and different ways to get different effects. But having tomahawks and cruise missiles and things that could be employed to achieve a pretty devastating effect, but without blowing up population centers, I think would be wise on our part. It makes nuclear war less likely, not more so.
Well, I mean, nukes aside, I think, according to a speech you gave last year, one of the most powerful weapons we have is love. I'm just kidding. Love is worthless. You said laughing at authoritarian regimes is
I think love is powerful too. I saw you went to a Lutheran college, so anyway, we'll have another conversation.
Wow.
About.
I want to be in the parallel timeline where we explored that now.
We'll talk about the New Testament later. But yeah, I did give that talk at the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation keynote, which, by the way, they've got the best name of any think tank or organization, is Victims of Communism Memorial Fund, where they systematically have gathered the evidence and preserved the evidence and present the evidence of communist regimes killing 100 million people in the 20th century, 100 million people. And one of the points I made in my keynote address was that China's on track to meet or beat the 20th century record if you hold China partially accountable for the COVID-19 debacle, given that it handled the outbreak so irresponsibly, covering up all of the key information that it had at its disposal about how dangerous this was, but also the fact that they were doing really dangerous gain of function research on COVID viruses, and inserting, basically adding and enhancing through human engineering, enhancing natural viruses in ways that probably actually led to the death of now 30 million people, according to the median estimate of The Economist newspaper in the UK. So I talked, on that down note, I then talked about the importance of satire and humor, and pointing out the absurdity of communism and of many of these other dictatorships, even non-communist totalitarian dictatorships. I was inspired by some of the writing of Liu Xiaobo, the late Nobel laureate, Nobel Peace Prize winner, who died under arrest in China a handful of years ago. But he talks about the role of satire and humor and making fun of these regimes. He says that when you point out what's wrong with these regimes and laugh at what's wrong, it immediately implies that there's there's an alternative that would be right. When you're looking at what's wrong with these regimes, it implies that something's right. And so satire is, I think the communists suck at it. They're just not funny people. The Ayatollah is not a very funny guy, from what I can tell from a far distance here. Kim Jong-un is funny, but maybe not on purpose. And so I think that it gives us courage to continue to make fun of these leaders. And in those places like North Korea, where people cannot get away with making fun of them, we should make fun of regimes on behalf of people who can't make fun of them for themselves, because totalitarianism is already so complete in those societies. And by the way, remember the A4, the Baizhi, the white paper demonstrations in late 2022 that helped. They appear to have helped end that draconian zero COVID policy in China. That was an amazing use of satire. It was people holding up, just a blank piece of paper, and by holding up a blank piece of paper, by saying nothing, they say everything about what's wrong with life under the communist dictatorship today in Beijing.
I hope we're not putting you on the spot, but what do you think is the funniest thing about the CCP?
I think just the total absence of just the bloodlessness of so much of its rhetoric, the complete lack of humanity in what it says is ridiculous. And I think that's why so few Chinese really are communists. You've got 95 million or whatever it is now Communist Party members out of a society of nearly 1.3 billion people. I don't think that that communism holds much water anymore for the vast majority of people in China. And if they were given a chance to vote, I think we'd see a very different kind of government emerge there.
I've spoken like a man who's tried to read Qiu Shi.
That's right. I don't recommend it. That's not fun reading, but it is important reading to be reading what Xi Jinping is saying to his own internal party structure. But you're gonna have to. I won't put you on the spot, but I think we should have a funniest communist moments competition to find what's most absurd and laughable about.
That's an episode idea.
Yeah.
There you go.
Top 10 funniest China moments.
It's a good. It's actually maybe a good competition.